Welcome to Zoe Stories. I was a regular guy until her makeup made me obsessed. My name's Ryan Carter, and up until a few weeks ago, I would have described myself as a pretty normal guy. I worked a 9-to-5 job in digital marketing, lived in a modest apartment just outside the city, and spent my weekends watching sports or binging Netflix. I wasn't particularly adventurous, not the kind of guy to take big risks or try something unusual. I liked predictability, wake up, work, gym, dinner with my girlfriend Emma, repeat. But there's something about routine that dulls you after a while. You stop noticing how much of yourself you've buried just to fit the pattern. I didn't realize how much of me was unseen until her makeup changed everything. Emma was my opposite in almost every way. She was a freelance makeup artist, lively, impulsive, and endlessly creative. Where I was cautious, she was bold. Her apartment looked like an explosion of colors, lipstick scattered on the vanity, brushes in jars, and palettes lying open like miniature art pieces. I used to tease her about it. "You've got enough lipstick shades to paint a car," I'd say. She'd grin and reply, "Maybe one day I'll paint you instead." It was a joke then, just a playful thing between us. I laughed it off every time, never suspecting those words would echo back later in ways I could never have imagined. We'd been together for 3 years. Things were steady, but lately different. Emma had been more absorbed in her work, doing tutorials, attending workshops, collaborating with local influencers. I was proud of her, truly. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel left behind. Sometimes, when I came home late from work, I'd find her live streaming, surrounded by bright ring lights, applying eyeshadow on herself or a model friend. Her voice, cheerful and confident, filled the room. I'd watch from the doorway unnoticed as she spoke passionately about shimmer finishes and blending techniques. It was mesmerizing. There was something about the way she transformed faces, how a few colors could shift someone's mood, their presence, even their personality. And maybe, deep down, I envied that power. One night, after she went to bed early, I lingered near her vanity. The glow from her mirror lights reflected in the bottles and brushes, painting the room in soft gold. It felt like standing before an altar of transformation. My reflection stared back at me, tired eyes, stubble, expressionless face. Beside me, Emma's makeup sat like an invitation. I don't know what made me do it. Curiosity? Boredom? Maybe something I'd been suppressing for too long. My fingers reached for a tube of red lipstick, the same one she wore on our first anniversary. I twisted it open. The scent was familiar, warm and faintly sweet. Without thinking, I dabbed a bit on my lips. It was uneven, clumsy. I wiped it off immediately, heart pounding as if I'd done something forbidden. But for that split second, I'd felt something strange. A rush. A spark of excitement I hadn't felt in years. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about it. At work, during lunch, even in the elevator, I kept replaying that moment. The way the color looked against my skin, the way my reflection had almost shifted. When I came home that evening, Emma was gone, off for a late-night shoot. My heart raced for reasons I couldn't explain. The vanity waited, the lipstick, the brushes, the shadows. This time, I didn't hesitate. I sat down and turned on the mirror lights. The glow hit my face, washing away the dullness of the day. I picked up a small foundation sponge, dabbing it against my skin like I'd seen Emma do countless times. It felt cold at first, then strangely soft. I followed with concealer, then powder. My reflection blurred, softened, changed. Then came eyeliner. My hand trembled, leaving uneven lines. Mascara next, careful, tentative. I looked ridiculous, I thought. But the more I worked, the more something deep inside me stirred. When I finally reached for the lipstick, the same red, I hesitated. Then slowly I applied it again. This time, I didn't wipe it off. I stared at myself. Not Ryan the quiet marketer, not Emma's boyfriend, not the normal guy everyone thought they knew. The face looking back at me was someone new. Softer. Bolder. For the first time I smiled, really smiled, and it didn't feel like pretending. Then I heard the front door click. My stomach dropped. I scrambled, grabbing tissues, wiping frantically. But the mirror told me it was too late. Foundation streaks, smudged mascara, and bright red lips that wouldn't completely fade. "Ryan? You home?" Emma's voice rang through the hallway. I froze. "In here," I called out weakly, voice cracking. She appeared in the doorway, hair pulled up in a messy bun, still wearing her black artist's apron. Her eyes flickered from me to the vanity, to the half-open lipstick in my trembling hand. Time stopped. I couldn't read her expression. Shock, confusion, something else. My heart thundered as she stepped closer. Her voice was soft. "Were you using my makeup?" I swallowed hard. I was just curious. I don't know what I was thinking. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, to my utter disbelief, she smiled faintly. "Curious, huh?" she said. "That's how it starts for everyone." I blinked. "What?" She tilted her head, studying me. "Sit back down," she said quietly. "If you're going to do it, let me help you do it right." My pulse hammered in my chest. A dozen thoughts raced through my mind: fear, shame, disbelief. But also something else. A thrill. As she reached for her brushes, I realized that this wasn't just about makeup anymore. Something inside me had been unlocked, and I had no idea how far it was going to take me. Emma didn't speak for a while. She just looked at me. Really looked, her eyes moving from the faint smudge of lipstick I hadn't completely wiped away to the way my hands trembled. The silence between us was sharp enough to make my chest tighten. Then she smiled again. "You're lucky you didn't ruin my best brush," she said lightly, sitting down beside me. I managed a weak laugh, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. "Relax, Ryan," she said, reaching for a makeup wipe. "I'm not mad, just surprised." Her tone wasn't angry, not even mocking. More like she was curious, as if she'd stumbled upon something delicate, fragile. Something that needed to be handled carefully. I didn't move as she gently began to wipe my face clean. The touch of the cool cloth against my skin, her soft perfume filling the air, it made the moment feel strangely intimate. "Why'd you do it?" she asked quietly. I hesitated. I didn't have an answer that made sense. "I don't know," I said finally. "I guess I just wanted to see what it felt like." "To wear makeup? To be someone else?" I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. She paused, her eyes searching mine. "You know," she said after a moment, "that's kind of what makeup does. It lets you play with identity. Try on versions of yourself." The words lingered in my mind long after she said them. Try on versions of yourself. That night, as she guided me through blending, contouring, and choosing shades, something began to shift. The mirror became more than glass, it was a doorway. Over the next few days, Emma seemed different. She didn't bring up that night again, but I caught her watching me sometimes, curious, amused. And then one Friday evening, she surprised me again. We were sitting on the couch watching TV, when she suddenly stood up. "You know what?" she said. "Let's do something fun." I looked up. "Like what?" She grinned. "A little experiment. You, me, some makeup and no judgment. I want to see what I can do with your face if you let me go all out." I froze. "Emma, Come on, it's just for fun," she said. "No one's going to see. Besides, you already started this, remember?" Her teasing smile disarmed me. Against all better judgment, I nodded. "Fine. Just this once." She clapped her hands. "Perfect. Sit still." The transformation took time. She started with concealer and foundation again, humming softly to herself. The smell of her makeup filled the air, floral, powdery, oddly comforting. Then came bronzer, blush, mascara. Every step made my reflection blur further from the man I knew. "You have nice cheekbones," she said, almost to herself. "Do I?" You just never notice them because you don't know how to bring them out." Her tone was matter-of-fact, professional, but the compliment made something flutter inside me. When she finished, she handed me a wig, a soft auburn one she'd used for a client once. "Here," she said. "Let's see the full effect." I hesitated. "Emma, this is getting a little." "Trust me," she said softly. So I did. The wig settled over my head like silk. For a second, I didn't recognize myself at all. The person in the mirror wasn't Ryan Carter, the quiet office guy. She was someone new, confident, expressive, mysterious. Emma's eyes lit up. "Wow," she whispered. "You look incredible." My throat went dry. I didn't know whether to laugh or panic. "Say something," she said. I don't know what to say." She laughed. "Then don't. Just look." And I did. For a long, breathless moment, I couldn't look away. That weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About her. The face in the mirror. I even dreamed about her. When Monday came, work felt duller than ever. Everyone at the office talked about quarterly goals and ad campaigns, but I couldn't focus. I caught myself glancing at the reflection on my computer screen, imagining mascara darkening my lashes, lipstick brightening my lips. I thought I'd shaken it off by the time I got home, but then I saw Emma's makeup bag on the counter, half open, and the temptation flooded back. She wasn't home yet. I told myself I'd just try a little. Just a touch. Foundation, mascara, a soft pink lipstick this time. The face in the mirror smiled, my smile, but somehow not. I brushed my hair to the side, tilting my head. The light hit my cheekbones the same way Emma said it would. It felt good. Too good. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Emma. "Running late. Be home in 20. My heart pounded. 20 minutes. Plenty of time to clean up. But instead of removing the makeup, I stared at myself a little longer. The more I looked, the more I wanted to stay like this. I picked up one of Emma's dresses from her closet, a soft, floral one she wore last summer. I shouldn't, but I did. The fabric slid over my skin, light and smooth. My pulse raced as I looked in the mirror again. It wasn't Ryan anymore. Not at all. It was someone else. Someone alive. The sound of keys at the door snapped me back. Panic flooded through me. I darted into the bathroom, locking the door. My reflection still stared at me, lips pink, lashes curled, body wrapped in her dress. "Ryan." Emma's voice echoed. "You here?" I couldn't answer. My breathing was loud, ragged. "Ryan," she said again, this time closer. "Why is the bathroom locked?" I tried to think. I could wipe it all off, hide the dress, pretend nothing happened. But the idea of erasing it suddenly felt unbearable. Then came a soft knock. "Ryan," she said gently. "It's okay. Open the door." My hand trembled on the knob. I didn't know what terrified me more, the thought of her seeing me like this or the thought of going back. The bathroom door felt heavier than it should have. My palm rested on the cold metal knob, my heart hammering against my ribs. I could hear Emma's breathing on the other side, steady, calm, patient. She wasn't angry. If anything, her tone carried something else. Concern. Curiosity. "Ryan," she said softly, "you can open the door. I promise, I'm not going to freak out." I stared at myself in the mirror. Mascara perfect. Lips still pink and glossy. My reflection, her reflection, trembled with indecision. Finally, I turned the knob. The door opened an inch, then 2. Emma stood there in her oversized denim jacket, her hair tied up, her expression unreadable. Her gaze swept over me. The makeup, the dress, the trembling hands. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. The silence stretched between us, thick and fragile. Then she whispered, "Wow." I swallowed hard. "Emma, She raised a hand, stopping me. "Don't apologize." "What?" I said, "Don't apologize." Her voice was calm, but her eyes glimmered with something strange. Fascination, maybe. I stepped back, uncertain. "I just wanted to see. I didn't mean to steal my clothes," she said with a faint smirk. Heat rushed to my cheeks. I know it's weird." Her expression softened. "Weird? Maybe. But you look beautiful." The word hit me like a shockwave. "Beautiful," I repeated, disbelief curling in my chest. "Yeah." She leaned against the doorframe. "It's a little eerie, though. You look different, but in a good way." I didn't know whether to laugh or hide. My reflection behind her looked confident, almost smug. But the real me felt naked. Emma walked into the bathroom, circling me slowly. Her eyes lingered on the way the dress fit, how the lipstick highlighted my lips. Then, gently, she touched my chin and turned my face toward the mirror. "See that?" she said softly. "That's someone who's been hiding for too long." "I don't understand," I muttered. She smiled faintly. "You don't have to. Not yet." Over the next few days, everything changed in subtle, unnerving ways. Emma didn't bring up that night again. She didn't tease me, didn't question me. But she started leaving her vanity lights on when she went out. Sometimes her makeup bag was open, her lipstick tubes perfectly lined up, like a silent invitation. At first, I resisted. I told myself it was a one-time thing, that I'd gotten it out of my system. But the reflection wouldn't leave my head. That other me, the one who looked free and alive, haunted me. At work, I started noticing things I never had before. The color of people's lips, the way eyeliner changed a person's expression, the quiet confidence that came with self-presentation. And at night, when I was alone, I sat before that glowing mirror again. At first, it was small things, eyeliner, maybe some foundation. Then I added more. Lipstick, wig, dress. Each time, the thrill deepened. And each time it got harder to stop. One evening, Emma came home early. I didn't hear her until she was right behind me. "Red suits you better than pink," she said softly. I froze, brushed halfway through applying blush. My stomach dropped, but she didn't sound angry. I didn't think you'd be home yet," I stammered. She smiled. "I wanted to see what my boyfriend gets up to when I'm not around." The word boyfriend stung oddly. "Emma, this isn't what it looks like," I said, my voice trembling. "Oh," she said, crossing her arms. "Then what is it?" Her tone was playful, but her eyes were sharp. She wasn't mocking me. She was studying me, like I was some new species she discovered. "I don't know," I said finally. "I just feel different when I do this. Like I'm not trapped inside myself anymore." She stepped closer. "Trapped?" I nodded. I don't know how else to say it. Emma reached out, touching the side of my face with a brush of her fingers. "You know," she said softly, "makeup's not about hiding. It's about revealing what's already there." Her words made my pulse quicken. "You think this is me?" "I think," she said, "you've been pretending not to be you for a long time." The weight of her gaze pinned me in place. That night, she did something unexpected. "If you're going to do this," she said, "then you're doing it properly. I want to show you how it really feels." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Tomorrow night," she said, "I'm doing a private makeup workshop. A couple of my friends will be there, models, artists. You should join." My blood ran cold. "Emma, no. Absolutely not." She laughed. "Relax, you won't be you. You'll be someone else. We'll give you a name, a story. Nobody will ever know." "Emma, I can't." "Can't," she teased. "Or don't want to find out if you can?" I didn't answer. The idea terrified me, being seen like that, being judged. But underneath the fear was something darker. Temptation. She smiled knowingly, sensing my hesitation. "You've already come this far, Ryan. Why stop now?" I didn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, caught between guilt and anticipation. By morning, I had made up my mind. I texted her one word. "Okay." Her reply came instantly. "Good girl. Be ready by 7. The words made my breath hitch. Good girl. I told myself she was just teasing, but the phrase lingered like perfume. When the evening came, I sat at her vanity again, the mirror lights glowing bright. Emma moved around me like a sculptor, transforming me piece by piece. New foundation, darker eyeliner, a deeper shade of red lipstick. "Let's call you," she murmured, tilting her head. "Renee." "Renee?" I echoed. She smiled. "Yeah, it suits you." When she was done, she handed me a black dress. "Wear this." It was tight, elegant, with a neckline that made my chest look different. My pulse pounded as I stepped into it. Emma stood behind me, resting her hands on my shoulders. Breathe, she whispered. You're Renee tonight. No one needs to know who Ryan is. Our eyes met in the mirror, hers, calm and confident, mine, wide with fear and fascination. For a second, I forgot to breathe, because in that reflection, Ryan was gone, and Renee was alive. The morning sun spilled through the blinds, casting long golden stripes across Emma's apartment. I sat on the edge of her bed, hands folded nervously in my lap, staring at the dress she'd laid out for me the night before. My chest thumped with a mix of fear and excitement that I couldn't name. Emma appeared in the doorway, holding a small tote bag filled with makeup and brushes. She smiled, her expression unreadable, a mischievous glint in her eyes. You ready? She asked. I nodded, though my voice caught in my throat. I think so. Good, she said, stepping closer. Tonight, you're not Ryan. You're Renee. The word felt foreign on my tongue, yet thrilling. Renee wasn't just a name. She was someone who could step out of the shadows of my normal life, someone I could be without judgment. And yet, the thought of leaving Ryan behind, even temporarily, made my stomach twist. Emma guided me to her vanity, the lights casting a soft glow that made my reflection feel alive. She moved with confidence, laying out brushes, powders, and eyeshadows in an almost ritualistic order. We'll start with the basics, she said. Foundation, concealer, blush. But after that, we let you become Renee. My hands shook slightly as she applied the first layer of foundation. The brush felt foreign against my skin, yet comforting. Each stroke blurred the edges of Ryan, smoothing over the ordinary and leaving behind something unrecognizable, beautiful, delicate, and bold. As she worked, Emma's voice was soft but instructive. Contouring can transform your face, highlight features you didn't know were there. Eyeshadow can change the way people perceive you, confident, approachable, mysterious, she trailed off, letting the words hang. Her gaze lingered on me in the mirror. See? You're more than you realize. Her fingers danced with the precision of an artist, guiding eyeliner along my lids, curling lashes, brushing soft shades across my cheeks. With every stroke, I felt the line between Ryan and Renee blur. My reflection shifted, no longer a man in someone else's dress, but someone new, alive, radiant. You're stunning, she whispered, stepping back to admire her work. I didn't respond immediately. The word echoed in my mind, bouncing off the walls of my insecurities. Stunning? That wasn't me. Or was it? She handed me a wig, auburn strands soft against my fingertips. This will complete the transformation, she said. I hesitated, but the lure of seeing Renee fully realized was irresistible. Sliding it over my head, I felt a rush of adrenaline. Emma stepped behind me, resting her hands lightly on my shoulders. Breathe, she murmured. Tonight, you're Renee. Just her. I stared into the mirror, tracing the contours of this new face. I didn't recognize the reflection, yet I couldn't look away. The soft pink lips, the defined cheekbones, the glitter in my eyeshadow. They weren't just makeup. They were a revelation. Emma guided me out the door to her private workshop, a rented studio that smelled faintly of polish and powders, walls lined with mirrors and lights. Other artists and models moved around, chatting and adjusting brushes. To them, I was Renee, a shy new model Emma was showcasing. Every step I took felt surreal. The stiletto heels clicked against the wooden floor, echoing through the room. People complimented me, asked polite questions, and I felt an odd thrill, both terrifying and exhilarating. Emma stayed close, her presence steadying me. Remember, she whispered, they're not here to see Ryan. They're here to see Renee. Trust her. I nodded, trying to summon confidence. With every compliment, I felt a dangerous pull. The boundaries between Ryan and Renee were thinning. Then, a familiar voice. Wait, is that? I froze. A coworker from the office had walked into the studio to help photograph the session. Panic surged. My hands trembled. My heartbeat raced. Emma stepped forward, smooth and calm. Hey. Perfect timing. "Can you adjust the lighting over here?" she said casually, pulling attention away from me. My coworker followed her instructions, oblivious to the identity crisis unfolding behind the wig. The near exposure left me shaking. I whispered to Emma, "I can't, what if they see me?" She smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "No one's going to see Ryan tonight. Only Renee exists here. Trust me." The session continued. I posed, smiled, and answered questions in a softer, higher voice than my own. Each time I looked in a mirror, Renee stared back, confident and alive. Every compliment, every flash of the camera, deepened the obsession that was forming inside me. By the end of the evening, when the room was quiet and the lights dimmed, Emma guided me back to the dressing area. "Do you want to remove everything?" she asked. I hesitated. "Not yet," I admitted, the words catching in my throat. She studied me carefully, a knowing smile spreading across her face. "I thought so," she said softly. "Renee's not done with you yet, is she?" I shook my head. "No, she's not." Emma's eyes gleamed with something I couldn't quite name: approval, curiosity, maybe a little mischief. "Good," she said. "Then we have a lot more to explore." The weekend had a strange calm over it, deceptively quiet, almost too perfect. Emma was out early for a photo shoot, leaving the apartment empty. But the moment the door clicked shut behind her, my pulse quickened. My eyes immediately darted to her vanity. The lights glowed softly, the mirrors reflecting the rows of brushes, lipsticks, and palettes. For a heartbeat, I felt a pang of guilt. I shouldn't. But the pull was irresistible. I sat down in the chair, hands hovering over the brushes. The quiet hum of the apartment made it feel as though the space itself was inviting me. And I knew I couldn't resist. Foundation first, light strokes to even out my skin. Concealer to hide the faint traces of stubble. Each movement felt ritualistic, hypnotic. The mirror seemed to come alive, whispering possibilities I'd never allowed myself to imagine. Mascara next, carefully curling my lashes. I traced the curve of my eyeliner, smudging slightly by accident and smiling at the imperfection. It made me feel human, vulnerable, alive. Then came lipstick. I paused, holding the tube, staring at the deep red shade Emma loved. I hesitated for only a second before applying it slowly, deliberately. The sensation was electric, smooth, bold, transformative. I reached for one of Emma's dresses, soft and flowing, the fabric cool against my fingers. Sliding it over my shoulders, I felt my heartbeat quicken. The mirror reflected not Ryan, the quiet office worker, but someone entirely different. Someone daring, free, intoxicating. I tilted my head and examined every detail: the curve of the neckline, the subtle shimmer of the fabric in the light, the way the wig framed my face. Renee had fully emerged, and with her, a thrill I couldn't describe. I almost didn't notice the sound of a key turning in the lock. Panic exploded in my chest. Emma was home early. She hadn't texted, hadn't warned me. My mind raced. Was I going to be caught like this? How would I explain it? But when she entered, the expression on her face wasn't anger. Not even surprise. She just smiled. "Still exploring, huh?" she said, voice calm, playful. I opened my mouth to reply, but couldn't find the words. My hands were trembling slightly as I adjusted the dress. Emma stepped closer, tilting my chin up to look at me in the mirror. "You're mesmerizing," she whispered. The words hit me like a shockwave. Mesmerizing. Not just a description of my appearance, but of the way I felt: alive, dangerous, electric. Over the next hours, Emma guided me with quiet patience. She didn't force me, didn't judge, only suggested. "Try this," she said, handing me a brush. "See how it feels." Each suggestion pushed me further, not into something forced, but into myself. The boundaries between Ryan and Renee were disappearing, not violently, but seamlessly. I laughed at my reflection, surprised at how naturally the movements, gestures, and even the voice had changed. Emma handed me a pair of heels, black with a delicate strap. "You don't have to," she said softly, "but they'll complete Renee." I hesitated for a moment, then slid my feet inside. The sensation was immediate. The slight imbalance, the subtle pressure on my calves, the confidence that seemed to bloom as I straightened. Every step toward the mirror made my pulse race. Every glance felt like an affirmation of this new identity. Then came the real challenge, a phone call from work. I froze. Should I answer? Would they recognize my voice? Could I talk like Ryan while looking like Renee? My fingers hovered over the screen. Emma noticed. She placed a hand lightly on my shoulder. "Renee doesn't answer work calls," she whispered with a grin. "Not tonight. Tonight, she exists only here." Her confidence bolstered mine. I let the call ring. The suspense was delicious, unbearable. For hours, I lived between two selves, the safe, ordinary Ryan who existed only in memory, and Renee, who was vibrant, expressive, unafraid. Every time I glanced in the mirror, I saw two faces layered on one another. Ryan's hesitant eyes beneath Renee's bold expression, the familiar trembling lips painted bright red. A strange combination of thrill and terror pulsed through me. By late evening, Emma suggested a game, a private photo session, only the two of us, to document Renee's debut. My heart thudded. Posing felt foreign at first, but Emma's calm, guiding presence made me trust her instructions. She adjusted my posture, whispered tips for expressions, and I followed, mesmerized by the way I looked, the way I felt. When she snapped the first photo, I barely recognized the person staring back at the camera. Renee smiled, and it wasn't an imitation. It was real, alive, untethered. "Look at her," Emma said softly, reviewing the shot. "She's amazing. You're amazing." I swallowed, heart racing. She's amazing. I'm amazing. The thought lodged itself in my mind like a seed, growing faster than I could control. And then the knock on the door, subtle, deliberate, unexpected. Emma paused, eyebrows raised. "Someone's here," she whispered. Panic surged through me again. The possibility of discovery, of being exposed in this new form, made my stomach twist. Every instinct screamed to hide, yet another part of me, dangerous, daring, wanted to face it. Emma's hand found mine. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "Renee is ready." And for the first time, I realized I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back. The apartment was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that makes every creak of the floorboards sound deafening. Emma was working on her laptop in the living room, headphones on, completely absorbed. I stood in front of the vanity, staring at myself in the mirror as Renee. Every curve of the dress, every stroke of makeup, every strand of the wig screamed confidence, but beneath it, my pulse raced. The exhilaration that had carried me through the last few days now coiled into raw anxiety. What if someone found out? What if I wasn't ready for the world to see this side of me? I tried to shake it off, telling myself this was private, safe. But then the doorbell rang. My stomach sank. I wasn't expecting anyone. Emma didn't schedule any visitors. "Who could it be?" Emma, oblivious, yelled. "Can you get that?" I froze, glancing at my reflection. My hands shook as I slid off the wig, smoothed down my hair, and attempted to turn back into Ryan, but the moment I took off the dress, my chest felt empty, exposed. My pulse raced faster than ever. Emma's voice floated from the living room. "Hurry up, someone's waiting." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to open the door. And there she was, a coworker from the office, someone I had never expected to see outside work. She smiled politely, a little too knowingly, and stepped inside before I could react. "Hi, I was just in the area and thought I'd drop by," she said casually, glancing around. Her eyes flicked to the vanity and froze. The mirror caught everything. My reflection, partially Renee, partially Ryan, stared back at me. The wig hadn't come off completely. One heel was still on. My hands trembled, frozen mid-motion as if caught in a spotlight. "Ryan?" she asked, tilting her head. Panic shot through me like ice water. Words failed. I couldn't explain. I couldn't hide. Every instinct screamed to retreat, to run, to erase what she had just seen. Emma appeared beside me, calm as ever. Hey, she said brightly. You caught him at a bad moment. The coworker's gaze flicked between the two of us, confusion clear in her eyes. I think I'm interrupting something? I swallowed hard, feeling a wave of shame and exhilaration collide. My identity, my dual self, hung on a knife's edge. Emma leaned closer to me, whispering, Renee can handle this. Trust her. Her words, meant to calm me, ignited something deeper. A spark of rebellion, a thrill of being caught yet daring to stand tall anyway. I straightened, forcing my shoulders back, and looked the coworker in the eye. The voice that came out was higher, softer, yet undeniably confident. I'm Renee, I said, almost trembling, almost laughing at the absurdity of it all. The coworker blinked, stunned, unsure whether to laugh, apologize, or back away. Emma's hand found mine. See? You can do this, she whispered. The encounter escalated quickly. Questions came, curious and probing. Is this a costume? Some kind of event? My mind scrambled for answers. Every instinct screamed, hide. But every thrill-hungry part of me screamed, don't. I realized then that the fear, the vulnerability, the rush, it was exactly what I craved. Renee didn't want to vanish. She wanted to exist. Emma guided the interaction seamlessly, deflecting suspicion, distracting, laughing softly at the co-worker's confusion. And in the chaos, I felt it, a surge of power, of freedom, of identity I had never dared to embrace. The first real obstacle wasn't just external. It was internal. Renee looked in the mirror, and I saw Ryan fighting to reclaim control. My hands trembled as I reached for the brush. My voice wavered as I explained away the situation. And yet, every word, every gesture, every glance felt electric. I realized I couldn't go back. Not completely. Emma, sensing my inner conflict, leaned close. You're not hiding anymore, she said softly. You've crossed the line. And now, her eyes gleamed, playful and serious at once. You might never want to be the same again. The co-worker eventually left, still confused but polite, and the door closed behind her. I sank back against the wall, heart racing, sweat prickling at my temples. I was exhausted, terrified, exhilarated, ashamed, and alive all at once. Emma touched my shoulder gently. This was just the beginning. There's more to explore, more to feel, more to be. And, Renee, she's ready. I stared at the mirror, my reflection divided, Ryan on the edges, unsure, trembling. Renee in the center, confident, daring, mesmerizing. And in that moment, I understood, nothing would ever be the same again. The next day felt heavier than the last. The apartment was quiet, almost oppressively so, and I could still feel the adrenaline lingering from the encounter with my coworker. Every glance at the mirror made my pulse quicken. Renee wasn't just a reflection anymore, she was becoming a part of me, and I wasn't sure I could separate the two. Emma watched me carefully from across the room, her expression calm but knowing. You're thinking too much, she said softly, walking over. She placed a hand on my shoulder, steadying me. Renee isn't scared. Ryan is. Let her out. I tried to nod, but my fingers trembled as I reached for the wig. The sound of my own heartbeat echoed in my ears. The thrill of being Renee, of existing in this persona, feeling powerful and seen, collided violently with the fear of being discovered. And then the knock came. My stomach dropped. The sound was sharp, deliberate, impossible to ignore. Emma froze with me, her calm demeanor flickering just slightly. It's probably the delivery, she said casually, though her tone carried tension I could feel. I tried to steady my breathing, but the thought of being caught halfway between Ryan and Renee made my palms sweat. The heels clicked against the floor as I approached the door, each step amplifying the suspense. Emma followed silently, her hand brushing mine in reassurance. Whatever happens, Renee can handle it, she whispered. I took a deep breath and opened the door. It wasn't the delivery person. It was my sister. Her eyes widened instantly, taking in the dress, the makeup, the wig. Silence hung in the air like a storm cloud. I froze. Words failed me. My mind scrambled for explanations, for lies, for excuses, but none of them sounded convincing. The fear of exposure hit like a tidal wave, and my chest tightened. Emma stepped forward smoothly, smiling at my sister. "Hey, we're just experimenting with a new look for fun. Isn't it amazing?" My sister blinked, suspicion clouding her gaze. "Ryan, is that you?" I felt every muscle in my body tense. This was it. The moment my secret could be exposed completely. My hands shook as I gripped the edge of the vanity. I wanted to run, to hide, to erase Renee entirely, but Emma's steady presence grounded me. "Not exactly," she said calmly. "Let's just say, Ryan is exploring a new side of himself." I swallowed hard, feeling my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My sister took a step closer, eyes narrowing. "You mean cross-dressing?" I opened my mouth to speak, but Emma raised a hand. "Renee isn't a joke," she said firmly. "She's real, and she's beautiful. You don't have to understand, but you do need to respect it." The room was charged with tension. My sister's gaze flicked between us, confusion and curiosity battling against her natural instincts. And then the unexpected happened. My sister reached out, hesitantly, to touch the wig. "It's soft," she murmured. Her tone wasn't mocking. It wasn't judgmental. It was fascination. I felt a jolt of relief, mixed with renewed anxiety. She wasn't angry, but she was curious. Dangerous curiosity, because curiosity meant questions, and questions meant exposure. Emma noticed my reaction and leaned close. "Breathe," she whispered. "This is exactly why we do it, to see reactions, to test limits. Renee can handle this." I nodded, taking a deep breath, letting Renee's confidence take over. The fear didn't vanish, but it became part of the thrill. I realized then that I was no longer just Ryan pretending. Renee was alive, and she could face anything. The next hour was a careful dance. My sister asked questions, tested boundaries, and I answered as Renee, voice soft, gestures confident. Each word felt electric, each movement dangerous. I knew one misstep could unravel everything. Yet with each passing minute, I felt something strange. Liberation. The tension, the threat, the suspense, it was intoxicating. I was no longer hiding. I was performing, surviving, existing. And the fear of discovery only amplified the excitement. Emma watched silently, guiding me subtly, her eyes glinting with pride and amusement. "You're doing beautifully," she whispered. "See what happens when you let go." I looked in the mirror and saw two versions of myself layered together. Ryan, frozen with panic and anxiety. Renee, bold, confident, and mesmerizing. The reflection blurred the line completely. By the time my sister left, the apartment felt charged, alive. I sank into the chair, breathing heavily, hands still trembling. Emma knelt beside me. "You're ready," she said softly. "Renee is ready. And the world will just have to catch up." I nodded, barely able to speak. My obsession, my thrill, my desire, everything had intensified. The stakes were higher than ever, and I knew the next step would push me even further. Because Renee wasn't just a mask anymore. She was becoming me. The apartment felt smaller somehow, the walls pressing in as though aware of the tension simmering inside. I perched on the edge of Emma's velvet couch, hands fidgeting with the hem of the dress, my reflection in the mirror dancing with every tremor. Renee's persona was solid now, confident, poised, almost untouchable, yet the fear of discovery lurked behind every heartbeat. Emma had left for a quick errand, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the soft hum of the city below. I stared at the vanity, at the brushes and palettes that had become my instruments of transformation. The impulse surged again, irresistible, magnetic. I needed to become Renee completely, at least for a little longer. I slid the wig onto my head, feeling the familiar thrill of identity shift. Makeup followed like ritual, foundation, blush, eyeliner, each stroke erasing the ordinary and conjuring the extraordinary. By the time I finished, Renee was fully present, alive, almost tangible in the mirror. And then I heard it, the soft, deliberate sound of the front door opening. Not Emma. My pulse spiked. Panic seized me as the figure in the doorway became clear. My boss, the last person I ever expected to see outside the office. His eyes flicked immediately to the vanity, then to me, frozen in mid-pose. Time seemed to stretch. Ryan, he said cautiously, stepping inside. I froze, my hands clutching the wig. This was it. Exposure. The secret I had kept, the obsession I had nurtured in private, could unravel in a single moment. Emma's words from earlier echoed in my mind. Renee can handle this. But Renee was bold, yes. She was alive, yet she had never faced someone who could endanger everything. My throat tightened. Hi, I managed, voice higher than normal, soft but steady. I'm exploring a new persona. It's part of a project. He raised an eyebrow, glancing from my dress to the heels to the makeup, his expression unreadable. A project? Yes, I said quickly, feeling the adrenaline pulse through my veins. Creative. Personal. Just something I'm experimenting with. He stepped closer, curiosity overtaking confusion. Ryan, is this the real you? The question hit like a hammer. I felt myself falter, panic clawing at my chest. But then, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just Ryan hiding behind makeup anymore. Renee was real, alive, daring. And if anyone was going to challenge me, I wouldn't cower. Yes, I said firmly, tilting my chin. It's me. And it's also not me. Meet Renee. The silence was deafening. My boss's gaze flicked between my trembling reflection and my confident stance. I could feel the tension thick in the air, a tangible force pressing against every nerve. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. All right, he said slowly. I wasn't expecting this, but I have to admit, it's impressive. Relief and shock collided. My knees almost gave out. I was safe. For now. But the thrill, the danger, the electricity of near exposure, it surged through me like wildfire. Emma returned at that moment, sensing the tension instantly. She walked in, calm and unflappable, her presence stabilizing me. Everything okay? She asked casually. My boss nodded. More than okay. Fascinating, really. Ryan, Renee, you've got something here. I sank into the couch, hands trembling, heart still racing. The danger had passed, or at least seemed to, but I was shaking. The thrill of the risk, the exhilaration of being seen and accepted at the same time, had pushed me to my limit. Later, when the apartment was empty again, I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair. I realized that Renee wasn't a temporary escape anymore. She was a living, breathing part of me, shaped by every compliment, every risk, every moment of fear and exhilaration. Emma appeared behind me, her reflection joining mine. You survived the test, she said softly. And more than that, you thrived. I swallowed, feeling the intensity of the day's events pressing down. I don't know if I can ever go back to just being Ryan, I admitted. Emma smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. Maybe you don't have to. Maybe Renee is exactly who you're meant to be, at least part of the time. I looked at the mirror again, at the dual reflection. Ryan, ordinary, nervous, restrained. Renee, vibrant, daring, unstoppable. The line between us had blurred completely. And for the first time, I didn't want to separate them. The thrill of obsession, the rush of transformation, the danger of near exposure, it all pulsed through me. I had crossed the line. I had embraced Renee fully. And nothing would ever be the same. The city lights stretched endlessly outside the studio windows, neon reflections glinting off glass walls. I stood backstage at Emma's private fashion showcase, surrounded by racks of dresses and rows of carefully arranged makeup kits. This wasn't her apartment anymore. The stakes were higher, the exposure more real. I tugged at the hem of the fitted dress Emma had chosen for me, heels clicking against the polished floor. The air buzzed with energy, chatter, and the distant hum of cameras. Every glance at the mirror backstage made my pulse spike. Renee was fully alive now. More than a persona, she had become my escape, my obsession, my thrill. Emma appeared beside me, her expression calm but intense. "Tonight is different," she said. "There's a crowd out there, cameras, strangers. Renee has to perform, fully. Are you ready?" I nodded, swallowing hard. Fear twisted with excitement. The thought of being seen, not just by a coworker, or a friend, or even family, but by strangers, terrified me. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a part of me craved it. "Good," she said, adjusting the wig on my head. "Remember, confidence is your armor." Backstage, models and artists hustled past, oblivious to my inner chaos. Every rustle of fabric, every high heel clicking, sounded amplified in my ears. The show was about to begin. Emma handed me a small card with my number and placement, and I felt my hands shake slightly. Then, from the corner of my eye, I spotted someone I wasn't expecting, a former classmate who had always teased me mercilessly in high school. His presence made my stomach twist. If he recognized me, if he saw Renee, I didn't know what would happen. Emma noticed my sudden tension. "Ignore him," she whispered. "Renee isn't here for judgment. She's here to shine." I took a deep breath, letting Renee's persona take over. My heels clicked confidently as I walked toward the runway entrance, makeup flawless, posture perfect. The lights hit me, the cameras flashed, and I felt a thrill unlike anything I had ever known. The first few steps were terrifying. Every eye on me felt like it could see through the layers of identity I had built. My heart raced, palms sweating. But then, I felt it. A strange, powerful surge of confidence. Renee didn't falter. She smiled, she posed, she moved like she owned the stage. The former classmate's expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. He whispered to someone next to him, pointing at me. My pulse quickened again. Exposure was imminent. Emma's voice rang in my ears, calm and commanding. "Own it. No one can take Renee from you tonight." I held my head high, letting the performance flow naturally. The thrill of being watched, of existing fully as Renee, was intoxicating. Every step, every glance, every flick of my wrist solidified the obsession I could no longer deny. Midway through the showcase, a twist came that I hadn't anticipated. A photographer accidentally tripped a cable near the runway, sending a spotlight spinning and momentarily blinding me. My balance faltered, heels slipping on the slick floor. Gasps erupted from the crowd. My heartbeat spiked as panic threatened to overwhelm me. But Emma's hand found mine, steadying me in an instant. "Focus on Renee," she whispered. "She's stronger than you think." I caught myself just in time, spinning into a graceful pose. The crowd erupted in applause. My pulse thundered in my ears. The danger, the exposure, the fear, all of it fused into a rush I couldn't resist. Renee smiled at the audience, at the flashing cameras, at every pair of eyes on her. I felt alive, electric, unstoppable. And in that moment, I realized I didn't want to go back to Ryan. Not now, not ever. As the showcase ended, Emma guided me off stage. Back in the quiet of the hallway, away from the flashing cameras, I finally allowed myself to exhale. "You did it," she said softly, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. "You faced exposure, fear, judgment, and you thrived." I nodded, chest heaving. The obsession, the thrill, the complete transformation, it had consumed me entirely. Renee wasn't just an experiment anymore. She was me. And yet, somewhere deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. The real challenge, the ultimate test, was still coming. Someone would notice. Someone would question. And I would have to decide. Hide, or embrace this new life fully. The lights of the city reflected in the glass, endless and bright, like the possibilities stretching before me. Renee stood tall, confident, obsessive, and alive. Nothing would ever be the same again. The city skyline sparkled like a million tiny stars, but I barely noticed. My focus was entirely on the door of the rooftop venue, the place Emma had chosen for the private afterparty of the fashion showcase. The glass walls reflected my image in 1,000 fragments, Renee in every one, bold, confident, unstoppable. And beneath it, Ryan's old self lingered, nervous and uncertain. Emma's hand rested lightly on my arm. "This is it," she said softly. "Everything you've built tonight, it all comes together here. Just stay, Renee." I swallowed, my pulse quickening. The venue was buzzing with photographers, models, and city elites. The after-party was supposed to be glamorous, safe, and private. Yet every glance from a stranger felt like a test, a potential threat to the persona I had nurtured, the obsession I could no longer deny. As we stepped inside, I felt the first wave of panic. A group of familiar faces from work, colleagues, higher-ups, were there. Eyes scanned the room, curiosity sparking wherever I walked. I froze for a heartbeat. Exposure wasn't just possible anymore, it was imminent. Emma squeezed my hand. "Renee is ready," she whispered. I nodded, letting the confidence of Renee take over. Every step was deliberate, every gesture fluid. I moved through the crowd, receiving compliments on my makeup, my outfit, my poise. Each word of praise sent a shiver of exhilaration through me. The obsession I had felt in private had now become a dangerous, intoxicating public thrill. Then it happened. From across the room, someone I hadn't expected, my younger brother, stepped out of the crowd. He froze, eyes widening as he took in the sight of me in full transformation. The dress, the heels, the flawless makeup. Time seemed to stop. My chest tightened, breath caught in my throat. This was the ultimate threat, someone who knew me intimately, someone who could see through Renee instantly. Emma stepped closer, her calm presence a tether. "Stay, Renee," she murmured. I forced myself to smile, to keep my voice soft and steady. "Hey," I said, tilting my chin, letting the persona take control. "Fancy seeing you here." He blinked, confusion and disbelief warring across his face. "Ryan, is that really you?" Panic and thrill collided in my chest. My secret was dangling on a knife's edge. Every instinct screamed to run, hide, erase Renee immediately. But another, more dangerous instinct, the obsession, the thrill, the power, pulled me forward. "Yes," I said softly, letting the words carry confidence I didn't entirely feel. "And I'm also Renee." The room felt charged. Conversation slowed. Eyes turned. Whispers began. I could feel every heartbeat echoing in my ears. This was exposure at its peak, the ultimate climax of obsession, identity, and fear. Emma's presence anchored me. "Remember," she whispered, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. "You've faced every fear so far. You can face this too." I took a shaky breath, stepping fully into Renee. My voice, soft yet firm, carried across the crowd. "I'm not hiding anymore," I said. "I'm proud of who I am, all of me." The effect was immediate. Gasps, whispers, a mixture of shock and awe. My brother's eyes widened, a mixture of disbelief, admiration, and uncertainty. And somewhere deep inside, I felt a dangerous rush. Being seen, being accepted, being alive in this way was addictive. Then, just when I thought I could breathe, the unexpected happened. A photographer's flash went off directly in my eyes, startling me. My heel slipped slightly on the glossy floor. For a heartbeat, I lost my balance. The crowd gasped. Panic surged. But Emma's hand found mine again, steadying me. "Renee isn't just beautiful."
"She's strong," she said.
I smiled, regaining my composure, letting every step, every pose, every glance scream confidence. The thrill of near exposure, of risk, of being caught yet surviving, consumed me entirely. By the end of the night, Renee wasn't just a persona. She was obsession made flesh, confidence made tangible, a living proof of transformation and audacity. As the party quieted, Emma leaned close, voice barely above a whisper. "You've done it. You faced every fear, every risk, and you thrived." I looked in the reflective glass, seeing two faces layered together. Ryan, anxious and fearful, and Renee, bold, fearless, mesmerizing. The line between us had vanished entirely. I realized then I could never go back to just Ryan. Not now, not ever. Renee wasn't a mask. She was me, obsession, thrill, identity, and liberation fused into one. And just as I allowed myself a moment of triumph, the sound of a phone buzzing from across the room reminded me that the world outside this party was still watching, still judging. The real challenge, the true suspense, wasn't over. Because Renee's story was only beginning. The night had grown colder, the city lights flickering like distant sparks. Emma and I stepped onto the balcony of the after-party venue, overlooking the streets far below. The party buzzed behind us, but out here, it was quiet, except for the hum of the city and the rush of adrenaline still coursing through my veins. I leaned on the railing, trying to steady my breathing. Renee felt alive, more alive than I had ever felt as Ryan, yet a gnawing anxiety still lingered. Tonight had tested me in ways I couldn't have imagined. Strangers, friends, family, colleagues, all had seen, or nearly seen, the transformation I had hidden for so long. And each encounter had fueled a dangerous, thrilling obsession that I could no longer ignore. Emma stood beside me, her hand brushing lightly against mine. "You've faced everything tonight," she said softly, voice almost hypnotic. "But the final test is about to begin." I turned to her, heart hammering. "Final test." She smiled, a mixture of mischief and seriousness. "Someone important is on their way. Someone who can't see Renee and just let it slide. Are you ready to face them?" I swallowed hard. My mind raced through possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. I had already survived exposure to coworkers, friends, even family. But Emma's tone suggested this was different. This was a confrontation that could unravel everything. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed in the hall behind us. My pulse quickened, chest tightening. I gripped the railing, nails pressing into the metal. The city lights blurred slightly as I tried to focus. And then I saw them. Emma's ex-boyfriend. The man who had once controlled, belittled, and humiliated her. His presence made my stomach twist. If he saw me as Renee, if he discovered the obsession that had consumed me, I didn't know what would happen. Emma's hand found mine again. "Stay, Renee. You've come this far. You can survive this too." I nodded, letting the persona take over completely. Ryan's fear retreated to the edges. Renee stepped forward, poised, radiant, confident, unafraid. The ex-boyfriend's gaze swept over me like a predator evaluating prey. His eyes narrowed slightly, suspicion etched across his face. "Who is this?" he demanded, voice low and tense. Emma stepped forward, her presence commanding. "Meet Renee," she said smoothly. "She's part of our world now." I felt my pulse spike, adrenaline surging. This was it, the ultimate confrontation. Exposure wasn't just a risk anymore, it was inevitable. My hands trembled slightly, but my stance remained strong, my chin lifted. "Yes," I said, voice soft but steady. "I'm Renee." The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. Every heartbeat felt amplified. Every breath seemed too loud. The ex-boyfriend's eyes flicked between Emma and me, confusion, disbelief, and something darker simmering beneath the surface. Then the twist hit. From behind the ex, someone else stepped forward. A photographer, a social media influencer, someone Emma hadn't expected to attend. Their camera flashed, instantly capturing Renee in full transformation. The moment was frozen in time, a permanent record of my obsession, my thrill, my secret life. Panic surged through me like wildfire. Exposure wasn't just a threat, it was happening. My secret was out in a split second, and the implications were terrifying. Emma's hand squeezed mine. "Breathe," she whispered. "Renee can survive this. She always does." I forced a smile, heart racing, letting the confidence of Renee mask the fear of Ryan. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, to erase the transformation. But another instinct, dangerous, intoxicating, pulled me forward. I had come too far. I had survived too much. The ex-boyfriend's expression darkened, his lips tightening into a line. "This changes everything," he said. "I need to know what's going on." I met his gaze, unwavering, letting Renee's boldness shine through. "What's happening," I said softly, "is exactly what it's supposed to be. You don't get to control this." "I do." Emma's eyes glittered with pride.
See?
"She's unstoppable," she said. The city lights stretched endlessly behind us, a reminder that the world outside was vast, unpredictable, and full of judgment. And yet, standing there as Renee, I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. I didn't care. I had crossed the line, embraced my obsession, and nothing could take it away. But just as relief and thrill surged through me, a text buzzed on Emma's phone. She glanced at it, and her expression changed, subtle, but enough to make my heart lurch. "It's complicated," she said quietly, eyes darting toward me. "Something's coming. Something we didn't expect." I felt the weight of suspense like a physical force pressing down. Renee had survived everything so far: colleagues, family, exes, accidental exposure. But now an unknown threat loomed. The obsession, the thrill, the danger, all had built to this ultimate, unresolved moment. And in that instant I realized, nothing would ever be the same. Ryan was gone. Renee was here to stay. And the world, unpredictable, judgmental, thrilling, was about to catch up. The city below glittered, endless and indifferent, as I leaned against the railing with Emma beside me. Renee felt alive, electric, untouchable, every fiber of her being a storm of confidence, obsession, and thrill. Yet beneath that power, Ryan's old self lingered, nervous and uncertain, reminding me of the precarious balance I had created. Emma's phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen, her eyes narrowing. Something unreadable passed over her expression, a flicker of tension, worry, maybe fear. She tucked the phone into her clutch, but the unease didn't leave me. "What is it?" I asked softly, my voice unusually high, entirely Renee. "Nothing yet," she said, but the edge in her tone sent a shiver down my spine. "Just be ready. You've come this far, but the real test isn't over." The rooftop doors behind us clicked. I felt the air shift. A shadow moved across the balcony, silent but deliberate. "Who's there?" I called, trying to steady my voice. My hands gripped the railing tightly, nails digging into metal. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall, unfamiliar, their face obscured by the glow of the city lights. My pulse spiked. This was no ordinary party guest, no friend, no colleague. This was someone else, someone who might see Renee differently, someone whose judgment I couldn't predict. Emma stepped closer, protective yet calm. "Stare, Renee," she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Her touch was grounding, but the thrill of danger surged through me like electricity. The figure stepped fully into view. A camera flashed, not a social media flash, but something heavier, professional, intimidating. My breath caught. "You're," the stranger said, voice low, deliberate. "Do you know what you're doing?" I froze. My dual identity, Ryan's fear and Renee's obsession, collided in a storm. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to erase this transformation entirely. But Renee's pulse, wild and unrestrained, surged forward. "Yes," I said, voice trembling slightly but daring. "I know exactly what I'm doing." The stranger tilted their head, silent, calculating, and then another flash went off. My reflection split again, a mix of awe, fear, and exhilaration. Emma's hand squeezed mine. "You're unstoppable," she said softly. "Remember, this is exactly why you became Renee. Every risk, every thrill, it's all part of the journey." But the stranger didn't move. They didn't smile. Their presence alone was a storm, a threat, a challenge. I could feel my heart hammering against my ribs, my palms slick with sweat. The obsession that had driven me here, that had transformed me, suddenly felt like a dangerous gamble. One wrong move, one misstep, one judgment, and everything could unravel. The city lights flickered behind us, reflections in the glass mirroring my dual identity. Ryan, frozen, fearful, trapped by circumstance. Renee, Vibrant, daring, electrifying. And then, without warning, the stranger spoke again. You've gone too far this time. Are you ready to pay the price? The words hit me like a thunderclap. My pulse spiked. My knees threatened to buckle. The thrill of transformation collided violently with the terror of exposure, the fear of judgment, the obsessive desire to be seen and admired. Renee stepped forward, chin high, heart racing. I'm ready, I whispered, a mixture of defiance, obsession, and exhilaration. The stranger's silhouette shifted, stepping closer into the light. And then, just as I was about to brace for whatever came next, the story cut to black.